Welcome back to the Sports Show with Woody and Les, and Mark Kiszla joining us today. And let's go right to the phone and bring in Jeff Goodman. He's the NBA insider for ESPN. Jeff, welcome to the show. And any surprise that LeBron has opted out of his contract and he's a free agent?
Absolutely none. Listen, LeBron's a smart guy. People don't understand how smart this guy is. I first covered him back when he was 14, 15 years old. And the only reason he's made mistakes is because he's listened to the wrong people, and Nike's been all over him and has made some bad decisions for him, primarily one, to make that ridiculous, deal with going to Miami, how he did. But other than that, he's a smart kid, not a kid anymore, knows what he's doing, and he's going to get paid a lot more money by opting out and going back to Cleveland than he would by just signing a long-term deal now.
Yeah, Jeff, this is what he ended about 1.2, 1.5 that would be the minimum they would have to pay him, and he'll get a lot more than that. I think he's assured everybody, at least not maybe in an announcement or an interview with Jim Gray, but he's assured everybody he's not going to leave Cleveland. I don't think there's any way he'll leave Cleveland. I think people are making too much out of this. Would you agree?
He can't leave Cleveland. I mean, imagine what those fans in Cleveland would do to him if he left them again.
Has anybody ever burned two jerseys of the same player?
I don't know. I mean, I guess if you maybe save it, you burn it and you kind of, have the foresight to understand what could be. You grab it out of the fire and you can burn the rest of it this time around. But there's no way from everything I've talked to anybody in the NBA. In Cleveland, LeBron's people, whoever, nobody thinks there's any chance he goes anywhere but sticking with Cleveland.
I'm more curious, actually, because I haven't thought for a moment that he was going to go anywhere. And I'm trying to believe Kevin Love, who said during the playoffs when he didn't have to, I'm coming back next year. Kyrie Irving will be back next year. What else do they need to do, Jeff?
Tristan Thompson is a unrestricted free agent.
But I don't see him leaving. But what does Cleveland need to do at this point? Well, J.R. Smith is a free agent also, if anybody wants him. So, Jeff, how do you see them trying to plot what they do to get back to the finals next year?
Well, I think you certainly go by the fact that, listen, if Kyrie Irving was healthy, we might be having a completely different tune. I think we really are at this point. I mean, Kyrie, we forget when he was healthy what he's able to do just by taking pressure off LeBron, making plays down the stretch, putting the ball in his hands, and he's actually probably a better scorer. He is a better scorer than LeBron, not a better player, obviously. But so I think the first thing is just get Kyrie healthy. I think you can make a case that they could have still won it without Kevin Love. Their defense is so much better with Tristan Thompson in there, jumping around, playing hard, getting offensive putbacks and second chances. He doesn't need the ball in his hands. I remember when they made the trade, Wiggins for Love, and I remember talking to one veteran assistant coach who had coached Kevin Love before, and he said, listen, this is not going to work because LeBron needs the ball in his hands, Kyrie needs the ball in his hands, and Kevin really needs the ball in his hands. And we saw it. He became just kind of a pick and pop third option. I still think he ends up coming back for a year, try to win an NBA title, and then he can do whatever he wants. Sign a one-year deal, and then he can get more money just like LeBron and these other guys are going to do because they know the salary structure is going to bump up significantly due to the new TV deal. So I think Tristan Thompson is going to get paid, guys, because why? He's got the same agent as LeBron. I mean, he could get max money if somebody he's restricted. So if somebody wants to offer him max money, Cleveland's going to have no choice but to match it.
He's Jeff Goodman. He's a basketball insider, NBA insider for ESPN. And this portion of the big stuff brought to you by Grand Prix Motorsports. We'll tell you more about them in just a sec.
Jeff, the free agent that interests me the most is LaMarcus Aldridge. And the team I hear him associated most with is the San Antonio Spurs. Are they the odds-on favorite? And if the Spurs do want to get Aldridge, do they have to break up some of their team in order to do that financially?
Well, I mean, we hear their name certainly strong. A lot of those West Coast teams, Texas teams, he grew up just outside of Dallas, and he can go anywhere he wants. It's a question for LaMarcus, where does he think he has the best chance to win? San Antonio is perfect for LaMarcus because of who he is and the type of character he possesses. I mean, he fits in. Honestly, guys, he's as close to Tim Duncan. He's not at that level, but in terms of kind of what he does, how he handles himself, low key, not a self promoter, just plays the game, doesn't talk trash, none of it. He's got a lot of Tim Duncan traits. So I think LaMarcus going there for a year would have a chance to win an NBA title there, and then Duncan is going to obviously at some point here in the next year or two, he'll retire, or a couple of years, I guess, if he wants to really keep going. But the guy that they may lose is Danny Green. You know, Danny Green could get paid elsewhere. So I think the big thing for the Spurs is getting a guy that can fill Danny Green's role.
Speaking of that, Jeff, I actually wrote on Sunday. All three of us here like Moutier, and I was looking at the free agent list, and the Nuggets are not going to get Aldridge. They're not going to get any of the A-tier people. And so what I suggested, and I'd like to get your feedback, you just brought up Danny Green. I think if they put Moutier in the lineup and they have a off guard, a shooting guard, Danny Green's a guy that can average about 40% from the three-point line. He does it in the playoffs. I also like Paul Millsap and Brendan Bass, and I wonder if you could comment on those four guys, or three guys, I guess, that I think would be second-tier good players for the Nuggets.
No, you're right. They're going to get a second-tier guy. They're not going to get a front-line free agent just because, you know, those guys end up going to the San Antonio Spurs or the Lakers or even the Knicks, who are down, but it's still New York. So you're going to have to pay a guy a little bit more to get him to Denver, and Danny Green's a guy you could do that with. Listen, he could shoot it. He's gotten so much better defensively than he was at Carolina in college. I love Millsap. I mean, I think they certainly want to keep him. Whether they can is a different story. Brandon Bass, I live here in Boston. You know, to me, Brandon Bass, you got to do better than that if you're Denver. You got to get better than Brandon Bass if you want to take the franchise up a level. I think the biggest thing is, what are they going to do with Ty Lawson? Where can you trade him that he's got the most value?
Boston, right there where you are, Boston.
Well, Danny Ainge does like him, but you know the problem is you do a deal involving Marcus Smart. You don't want a point guard back. I guess maybe you just want a veteran if you're Denver, but you got to play Moutier. I've seen Moutier play 25 times or so. And he's a guy you got to just give the ball to and let him play through his mistakes. But his upside is he could be a top 5 point guard in this league in time. Now the big things for him, everybody talks about the consistency on his outside shot, and that's got to get better. But as much as it's that, I still think it's feel for the game, feel for the point guard position. You know, he was so much more athletic than everybody in China or everybody in AU basketball. He was superior talent-wise, that he could get to the basket whenever he wanted. In China, he'd get there and then lob it up. He's not going to be able to do that in the NBA, so he's got to learn how to make decisions, a better feel for the game, and I think doing that, he's got to play 35 minutes a game. So if you make a trade with Boston, right, if you trade Lawson, they're going to have to get rid of a point guard. Maybe it's got to be a three-way deal.
Let's tap into your Moutier expertise. If you've seen him play 24 times and you think he needs to play 35 minutes a game, what should Nuggets fans expect out of him for 35 minutes a game? What kind of rookie year do you foresee for him?
I mean, he'll be inconsistent. You know, he'll have one game where he'll get 18 and 7 assists and look like he's the next Derrick Rose, and then I think he'll have the next game where he'll have 7 or 8 turnovers and shoot 2 for 12, and that's what you're going to get. But you got to live through it this year, because if you're Denver, you're not really playing for anything this year. I think we would all agree on that.
Yes.
You need to find a star. Moutier is your best opportunity to do so. And if you can trade Lawson and get a high quality wing, that's what you need. And they're out there. Listen, you can overpay. If you're Denver, do you overpay for Tobias Harris, for instance? Orlando would like to keep him, but are they going to pay him? Are they going to max him out? Tobias Harris is a guy, because you do have, Fareed and Nurkic, down low, and if you got Moutier as your point, well, what do you need? You need a couple of wings. And maybe Sacramento can help you there. Maybe you can get McLemore in a deal for Lawson. You get McLemore. Certainly you can get Stauskas and something else from Sacramento, and we know how much George Karl loves Ty Lawson.
I don't like Nick Stauskas. I don't want him. I don't want him here.
We're working through the problems here, Les.
He can shoot it, guys. He can't do that.
Jeff,
and he's sitting there in Boston going, boy, those are a greedy bunch out there for having nothing.
Jeff, we're still trying to figure out what Phil Jackson was thinking, drafting Porzingis with the number 4 pick overall, considering that when this guy does turn into a player, if he turns into a player, Carmelo will be in his mid-30s and Phil might be long gone. Can you figure out what Phil Jackson was thinking with that pick?
Well, I just think after the top 3 guys, there was a major drop-off. And he probably, from what I was told, he did try to trade down to get somebody lower, whether it was Frank Kaminsky or Trey Lyles or somebody that would also fit the triangle. But at 4, he couldn't get enough for that pick because there was that significant drop-off following Karl Anthony Towns, D'Angelo Russell, and Jahlil Okafor. So he went with a guy with the highest upside. He's 7'2". He can really shoot the basketball, and he's a good athlete. But I saw him in New York, and man, is he thin. And you just don't envision him having much of an impact. Listen, can he put up numbers? Sure. People have to put up numbers in crappy teams. So if you give him, you give him 35 minutes, he's going to make shots. He's going to put up numbers. But what does that really mean at the end of the day? He's probably not going to be ready to be an impact player for a competitive team, for a team that's a playoff caliber team for 3 years. Like you said, listen, Carmelo at that point is past his prime, and they don't have anything else. I don't know what I would have done if I was still in that spot, because I don't think there was a winning scenario. Either you were going to, no matter who he was going to take, think about it, he was going to get criticized. If he took Justice Winslow number 4, people would have said it's a reach. If he took Willie Cauley-Stein number 4, well, he really couldn't because Willie Cauley-Stein can't play in the triangle. He could have taken Moutier. Obviously, he didn't love Moutier, and because that's probably who I would have taken, just because it's a point guard position. They need it. They need an upgrade over Calderon and Shane Larkin desperately.
The last thing I want to ask you before we let you go is I want to lean on your expertise one more time. Is Chris Middleton the next Jimmy Butler, and how much is it going to cost the Bucks or anybody else to have him on a roster?
Oh, boy, I don't think so, but I didn't see Jimmy Butler becoming the next Jimmy Butler. I mean, listen, I saw him play a lot at Marquette, and I love Jimmy Butler. I love him for his intangibles, all that. I did not think Jimmy Butler would do this. I didn't think he'd shoot the ball like this. I didn't think he'd have the opportunity. Now, it worked out because Derrick Rose got hurt. Joakim Noah was playing on one leg for much of the year, so it worked out for Jimmy. But, yeah, Chris Middleton, I don't see it. I don't see him ever becoming Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler, to me, is more of a killer than Chris Middleton. He had that fight in him. He went to junior college. He was kind of passed over at every turn. So Chris Middleton, to me, is going to be overpaid, but I think there's no choice. You have to overpay him if you're Milwaukee, because otherwise, who are you getting? It's kind of like Denver. If you don't overpay for a guy like that, you're not getting anybody better. You have to in those smaller, mid-tier markets. Even a team like I said, I'm from Boston. Even the Celtics, who have all that tradition, they're a major market. They have to overpay to get a guy in here as a free agent.
Jeff, we know we can get you at ESPN.com. How can we find you on Twitter?
Goodman, ESPN. I'm kind of the only idiot who tries to follow basketball at all 3 levels, so that's how I saw Moutier. I do some recruiting, do a lot of college, and try to do some NBA. So love the game, and hopefully you guys will be able to trade Lawson over there and get somebody in return, because I don't know how much leverage they have right now. That's the hard part. Everybody knows he's got to be moved.
Yeah, true.
Jeff, we've had probably 1,000 guests on in the 6 or so months we've done the show, and I think you're the best. You gave us great insight. I appreciate it.
Yeah, good stuff on Moutier. Thanks, Jeff. Really appreciate it.
Check in the mail, guys, I promise.